Quiltinator.com. I'm Michelle Johnson. The age-old question, or actually not so old, but is it a quilt or is it not a quilt? When people find out that I quilt, they will tell me that their grandmother left them the most amazing, beautiful quilt, but it needs a little work, and can I take a look? Well, when I get a hold of it, this is what I get. It's just a top. And I will have to explain to somebody that what they have is a top. It's unfinished, and I will tell them who they can send it to have it quilted by hand or quilted by machine. And they are heartbroken to not realize that it's a quilt, that it's not a quilt. So I have to tell them a quilt is 3 pieces, and here is a blanket that I made for my daughters. This is the parallels pattern, and I completely pieced this top together. It's got some work, that's why it's home, is because I've got to go back and tack up some things and fix it. But it's on fleece. Even though it's been bound, it's been machine quilted, it is still just a blanket. And the insurance companies will only give you $50 if you don't have documentation of your quilt. It's very important to label your quilts, take pictures of your quilts, maybe even have a video camera where you go through your house and you know, document everything, and then back that up, because in case of a fire, in case of a flood, anything that happens, if your quilts are stolen, even though you have $500 worth of fabric in there, they're only going to give you $50 for it if you don't have documentation. So a quilt is 3 layers. Traditionally, you're going to have a block or a piece top, and then you're going to have a batting, and then you're going to have a backing. And it, like I said, tied, it on with a button, tacked, quilted, it doesn't matter. That will end up being a quilt. And say this was a foundation piece, because this really is, it's a foundation piece. It's one of those old-timey ones. Here's like an old piece of cereal box or something, and they made a template, drew little lines on it, and you can see what they did. And all they did was stitch and flip. So they stitched on and then flipped, stitched and flipped. And then all you do is you go back through and you cut it across. And if you're doing a foundation piece, I mean, this is foundation piece, but it's not what we would consider a complete foundation piece. A complete foundation piece would be this whole piece of fabric would be covered up. There would be nothing, none of the original block showing. So if you have a completely covered foundation piece, like with a crazy quilt, and even if it's got, it doesn't matter if it's got stitching, whatever. If it is foundation pieced and then it has a backing, that is 3 pieces, because you have your foundation piece, all of your other pieces that go on the top, and then your backing. So it's still 3 pieces. This one little quilt square draws a very fine line between, if I could just back it with a piece of flannel, it's not a quilt. If I were to cover this diamond shape, this kite shape, with some other fabric, and then put that flannel on the back, it would be a quilt. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's the way that if you're going to enter it into somewhere, if you're going to try to get insurance company to recognize it as a quilt. You're going to have to take pictures, document it, put your little label on the back, and so that way you get full value. Also, with your insurance companies, if you buy quilts, keep your receipts, show people what it is, like I said, if you videotape or whatever, and then that way you keep a record of it. Your quilt are more valuable if it was made by somebody famous. So if you have a quilt made by Eleanor Burns, it's going to be much more valuable than if it was made by me or your next door neighbor, unless your next door neighbor's Eleanor Burns. So, pieced, you know, like I said, a piece top on minky, on flannel, on fleece, and then bound, it's not a quilt. Insurance companies will not say this is a quilt. If you send this into, you know, a show, it's not a quilt unless you have something between it. So that's our answer for today. I'm Michelle Johnson with Quiltinator.com, and I am getting back to quilting.